All right. I'm super excited to be going through this today. HubSpot, CRMs, agents, these are the things I think about every single day. So it's actually really nice to be able to have a place to share some of the learnings along the way. This is something that we obviously are trying to do in here in Relevance. It's something that we are constantly iterating on and learning about. A lot of what we are sharing today is kind of a process of iteration. You try something, you learn about behaviors of agents, and you discover new capabilities. And one of the coolest capabilities is this thing called MRP. So I'm excited to share a little bit more about what that is and how we use that internally and the thinking behind it and where do we actually apply this in our day to day. I'm not much of a slides person. I like my whiteboard, so we're going to use this today and bounce around. So I like to zoom out just to show what's coming up today. We've got about, I want to say 40 minutes of some content to share, some thinking and principles around how do we use this and how do we design for agents using MRP. And then on the right-hand side, which is, I think, what most people are here for, is all the demos and all the cool things it can do. So we'll make sure to spend a bit of time there. What we want to also do is to take questions along the way. So if you've got questions, feel free to pop them in. We've got Chelsea and Alex here moderating, and they can either help answer questions along the way or we raise it for a 10-15 minute Q&A at the end. Everything sounds good?
Sounds great, as long as when we get to the meat source, you're going to zoom in, because Gabe and Johan, George on the call, Eli, they're not going to be able to see that good stuff. Humans, heart CRMs. Okay, awesome. Great.
Yeah,
great.
we're zooming in. We're zooming in.
I'm just speaking on behalf of my squinty eyes. Thanks.
So
thanks,
humans and CRM. Why do we love our CRMs? We love our CRMs because it's where our latest information lives. It is how we understand about what's the latest happening with that particular customer, the person we've been working with. And for those who are on the call and are not quite sure what CRMs are or have never really used this on a day-to-day, it stands for Customer Relationship Management System. And that is a really fancy way of saying it's a giant spreadsheet that keeps everything about your customers in one place. And because it's a spreadsheet, it's really good for reporting, right? It's good for understanding what we've done, over the past months or weeks, or all the interactions we've had with our customers and our data, to be able to report on, say, the customer health or how many times we've emailed someone. And so that's why humans love CRMs. And the third one is actually to dig deeper and to kind of understand the history around the relationship we have with our customers. These three things is one of the, I think, a really simple way to describe what CRM means for anyone who uses it. And for us, it certainly goes a long way because this is how we think about our CRM here. And so why do agents love CRM? Now, let's see the parallels here. Agents love CRM because it's a live data source. A live data source means this is fresh data. It is data that is alive and it's evergreen. The latest information is always being populated in there. It's not static. Things can change. And that means agents can go in and kind of see what's up and figure out what is the latest about a customer. The second one is structured data. Structured data, because it's also used for reporting, all the relationships we have inside of the CRM is really structured, and it allows someone to go to a contact and see who this person is and what we've sent to them. But it also allows them to jump into, say, the company and understand more about the background and all the other people who work in that company. And for us, we do a lot of the work in the CRM for our sales teams. So we have deals. And these kinds of records being linked together is perfect for how agents consume that information. And the final one is actually open-ended. Agents love CRMs because it allows, it has a lot of structured data, but a lot of that data is not perfect data. So what I mean by that is that sometimes you I'm sure have that experience where you're looking for the latest information in your CRM and you just realize like, maybe I didn't fill it up the last time we had that meeting. Or, hey, we have 5 things that we always record at the end of each call and we want to be noting them down, but sometimes it's not always there. Maybe it lives in another note in a different part of the CRM. And because that's the nature of CRMs, the open-endedness of clicking into the different records, looking at the different history, looking at your email chains, the process of understanding what is happening to this customer or this person often leads to an open-ended kind of research process to really get deep into that understanding and the context. And so agents is the perfect kind of use case for that, because instead of just pointing it to a traditional automation where you got to always read that field, if that field is empty, agents can actually realize that, look at the links between your records, and go look for that information themselves. And so these are the parallels to why we love it internally and why agents work so well with CRMs. I'll just pause here. Chelsea, I know you don't typically work with CRMs too much, but what are your takes on this?
I have a question from Juliana in chat. Because you're talking about structured data, do we have an agent in Marketplace that's dedicated to data structuring and readiness? Not that enrichment stage and getting the insights, but anything that helps with that part of the process.
Yeah, there's a couple. I think one of the simpler ones that you'd find immediately useful is taking your meeting notes using agents. Whether you get a transcript from something like Gong, which is a really popular tool, you can take those notes and then use an agent, read that, and then put it into the right boxes for you. And that's actually something that has been an unlock for us in our own process, where after every call, we don't what used to happen is like people spend about 10-15 minutes writing out their entire notes, putting that into the CRM, and then making sure they move it to the right stage, fill out the right fields. And that's how it becomes structured data, because someone actually has to sit down there and structure it. But agents are now able to do that just with a couple of prompts. You just say, read my notes, pick out the biggest pain point from this conversation and fill out this box here. And once you have that running in the background, every call gets recorded, every call gets put into the right place, and that's how you can actually structure the data using the help of agents. So we do have, I think, a couple of agents related to call note taking, putting that into a CRM. And since we're going to talk about Harry as well and using that in HubSpot, Harry actually can do that for you too, and I'll show you how.
Nice, right. Nice. So reps still have to be disciplined. We still need to train our humans to still stay disciplined. But now with meeting notes, we can help improve that. For people that are working with existing CRMs, that might be Juliana and Eli are saying, oh, it could be a nightmare if you're inheriting something that's a little bit messy and whatnot. But meeting note takers, we're talking more about the net new information that's coming through, right?
That's right. But to answer that question one more level deeper, if the data is already there and it's a little bit messy today, there's not much else we can help with using agents apart from sitting down there trying to really understand and figure out why is it messy in the first place. And the first pass is usually taking that into a spreadsheet, trying to clean it up a little bit and putting that back in the CRM. So that process and all that pre-work that needs to happen for this to be good enough for both the human and the agents to read from, that part is still you, Juliana.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, Juliana. I think the rest of the people on the call. Johan's writing something, but all good. I can't see the message yet, so let's go to the next bit. We can come back.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks, Dean.
So I wanted to start there because those are the parallels between how humans use the CRM and how agents will also use the CRM. And notice that these are not arrows that go one direction. It's both directions. So when, for example, an agent does something in a CRM, the humans get to enjoy that because they get to use that information as well. They get to read it, they get to interact with it, they get to amend it, and likewise, if the human comes in and adds something to the CRM, the agents can see it. And this is actually a relationship that goes back and forth. That bit will become quite important later as we show this demo. And so now to the exciting stuff, which is Harry the HubSpot wizard. This is my favorite colleague. In fact, I think he's doing so well that he's actually replaced a huge part of my job, which I'm all for, because that's the kind of goal with AI agents in the end of the day. So what can I tell you about Harry? Harry is essentially a HubSpot agent. He understands a few things. He understands how our CRM works. He understands HubSpot as a software and all the intricacies around what it does and how that might be different to something like a Salesforce. And more importantly, it also understands things about our sales process. And because it's an agent that we built internally, it is also able to understand the nuances of what we mean by certain, parts of our sales process. If we talk about qualification, every company might qualify a deal slightly differently, but for us, it means something very specific. And so we are able to impart that kind of specificity to Harry. And so when we talk to it or talk to Harry, he's able to come back with very helpful information rather than general information. And the brackets here, MRP, which might be a fairly new term for most people. In fact, I think I would expect everyone to be quite new to this term. MRP stands for Model Relevance Protocol. It's a play on words with MCP, which is a little bit more popular. And we'll share a little bit more once we see some demos, what the differences are. But essentially, Harry does everything in the CRM for us. And so what better way to showcase that by actually looking at an example chat we've had with Harry. So this is how we interact with Harry. One of the ways we interact with Harry, which is going into a chat window. And we can just type in Harry, the HubSpot wizard. I have a meeting with Sam Altman tomorrow. Can you please help me prepare for the call? Now, I wish I had a meeting with Sam Altman. It'll be a pretty interesting meeting that we'll have. So all of this information is mock data, so that we can just have a feel of what it looks like to work on a deal that's already existing with a ton of interactions and emails back and forth. And so Harry's able to go and look for that detail, piece it together, and then tell me how I should be preparing for this call. So what did Harry actually do? If I select this dropdown, we can see that it's using the CRM, and it's not very helpful here, or not immediately helpful to see the details of what is it using the CRM for, but we can get to that in a bit. But high level, it's looking up things in our CRM, and you can see it's done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things in our CRM before it prepared this summary. And in this summary, it covers things like the meeting date, the deal overview, where are they in this current deal cycle. For us, it's the decision makers brought in. That's why we're meeting with Sam. The amount, 100,000, of course. And the close date is tomorrow, the end of the month. So we got to hurry. It understands also what the new the deal types are. And so these are more specific to us, because we care about whether they might be in the new business category, expansion with existing customers, or renewal. What else did it tell us? Key stakeholders. This record is connected to the different contexts in the deal. And so you're able to see who are the other people attached to it as well. And all of this came from the meeting notes that we've had over the past few months. I will come in here and actually have a look at what Harry's done. So I'm hoping we can jump into the builder from here. Let's see. Perhaps not. Let me pause my screen and bring up the builder.
All good.
I was hoping to demo all this in chat, but I don't think I'm an admin in this account.
Oh, that kind of makes sense. So
yeah, so I can't jump into Builder from here. 1 second.
I trust that you're an admin though on the build up in the back end with because you've actually built and architected these things, so all good.
Yes. But any questions so far, Chelsea?
We actually, and this is intentional, guys. So for chat, if you've started using chat, or if you haven't started using chat, it looks very chat GPT, but it's a way for people to be able to consume agents that are already pre-built. But you wouldn't want certain teams to be able to access the build experience that Wei Li has access to when he's bringing up the screen. So that's one thing. A question from Johan. How about multiple meetings on a CRM record? I mean, on an account, there's going to be multiple stakeholders that you're going to be speaking to, and there's going to be maybe different account, there's going to be different people, there's going to be many different multi-threaded conversations. So can this add and detract updates from previous meetings? How does the note taking and the creation of notes kind of work? The meeting happens between me and you, Wei Li, and then how does that, or we have the meeting with Sam Altman and then that gets updated into HubSpot. And then, I don't know, Johan has a meeting with Sam Altman and then we all work together. Kind of, how does that work? What's reading, what's writing, what's detracting? So that's his curiosity. And you can answer that when it's relevant, maybe when you've got the right things on the screen.
So thanks for covering there, Chelsea, as I was opening a ton of tabs to showcase that. So here's what it looks like in the CRM itself. The way it's connected, we've got a company in HubSpot. It's OpenAI. We've got Sam here as a contact here, and he's got a deal. And Johan, how does this interact with all these different records, depending on what the latest context is and who we're meeting? It's basically going inside of the deal and doing what a human would. It's reading the latest activity. It's looking at all the logged emails or the logged notes that we've had and seeing who we've got associated to this deal. And on top of that, because we have a meeting note taker agent that fills out all these things like the metrics, the decision criteria, the process, and all that helpful details to help progress this deal along, it's able to then read these information, understand that we are actually part of the decision process, and we can it actually refers to this stage and says the executive sign up for global rollout is the third on that list. And using that context, it's able to then search deeper to figure out who exactly is this executive sign off. If Sam is the right person to be speaking with, and if so, what does he care about? All right, I got that page open, so we can have a look. So I have a meeting with Sam Altman. So this is what happened behind the scenes, and we can actually take a look at what it's doing here in HubSpot. Clicking into these things here, we can see that the first thing it's filling out as a tool is what is this API call for. This API call is essentially a way for systems to work with integrated softwares. In our case, it's HubSpot, but API calls can be for any software that is available to use an API with. An agent can be built around it using this style. And in this case, it's searching for the Sam Altman email. And it's using this specific HubSpot API to actually get these results. And we can actually have a look. So it's looking for Sam Altman using that email, and it's returning the IDs for it. And so one of the things that you find inside most CRMs is that you've got a lot of these kinds of URLs with IDs on that. And that's how it actually understands which ones it's linking to. So the first one is HubSpot. Next one, let's get Sam Altman's company and deals. So going into Sam Altman's company, OpenAI, and checking if there's any deals with that. Getting associations for Sam Altman and companies. And that's looking at who is Sam Altman connected to in our CRM. So the next thing it's doing here, it's getting associated deals. And then it's doing the next thing, which is get the company details for OpenAI. And each one of this is actually being filled out by the agent, depending on the task it's being asked to do. The next one here is, now that we've got all that information about Sam Altman, his company, the deal, let's go and look for context specific to that meeting. And one of those really important meeting details that we use internally here is these MEDPIC fields in the properties. This MEDPIC fields essentially stands for, it's similar to MEDIC, just a little bit extended. So M stands for metrics, E stands for economic buyer, D stands for decision criteria, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that we fill along the way. And because it knows that this is part of our sales process, it's able to look for that information specifically. And here is what it returns with. So all of this is done on a HubSpot call as a tool inside of the agent. And it returns the entirety of all this context so that the agent has information to use in its next step. For us humans, we actually don't have to read too much into this. You can see it's also pulling other things like situation, and there's really no information about that. And so if it's null, it's null. We've got use cases as well, and if we didn't fill that out, then it returns null. But for the rest of the things, it's able to then use that in its context to then do the next step in its process. So let's have a look. What's the next step? I think we were here. There we go. So now it's understanding where it is in the deal cycle. It's looking for the activities. So we're looking for meetings, we're looking for emails, it looks for notes. And finally, I think here it's batch reading for any additional emails from OpenAI. I know we just kind of sped through 10 or so steps inside of a CRM here. But if you think about that and zoom out, this is kind of what a human would do. I would go into Sam's profile. I'll have a look just to see if there's any emails. Let me check the company. I'll open that in a new tab and see if there's other people in this company that we're working with. Maybe jump into the emails, maybe jump into the notes and just read some of those things as well. Once I get a bit of understanding, I might shift my focus to the deal. And this is where I understand a bit of that history already. And then I come into the deal and I read what's on the deal. But I don't just read it as a standalone. I read it coming from those places and the interaction in mind. And so it's a little bit more contextualized for whatever I'm preparing for. And that's the same thing with this kind of agent, where it's able to decide what it needs to find based on the task that's been provided. And it will go away to do all those steps that a human would. And once it's got all of that detail, and it's a lot of detail, it's going to try to synthesize that into something that it can help us with in terms of this meeting. And it's how it came up with Sam Altman is a decision maker. He's been brought in. He has a deal value. He has the current status, and all the way down. I think what will be interesting here is to actually see what are the next steps. Here you go. Pre-meeting checklist. Bring one-page security data. I'll pause here again. Chelsea, what do you think?
No questions in chat, but if team, you're more than welcome to answer a question. This is just like a bit of an aha insight for me, but a no-brainer. So forgive me if this is so obvious, but this is such an agentic use case. In the sense of, it is very human-like. It's multi-dimensional. The way you've architected this, but then just asking, help me prep, what does that actually mean, as opposed to a deterministic flow, which would be like, do this and then do this and then find this and that. Like, no one can, I'm not going to be writing that out. So this is an excellent use case of an actual agentic flow.
And that's right.
That was just an insight for me. Sorry. This is really, no questions in chat.
And I think that's the kind of direction we've seen so far. A lot of the initial agents we've built using very specific things that we want to always do when we talk about a deal, for example. Maybe in the past, instead of being something like this, where we have the agent decide what it needs to do, we actually decide for it up front. And it says, every time someone asks you about a deal or a meeting, do these 5 things. Check the deal, check the company, check the notes. And it always does that 5 things over and over again. However, if you then ask it to say, look up the last note that I tagged on Sam, and figure out if there's anyone else that was tagged together with that note, it's not able to do it because we've not taught it how to do. And so that 5 steps that we pre-built it with now breaks because it's a new task. This kind of style of agents where we actually don't specify how it should do the work, we just give it the process of how it would need to do or where it should go to look for that information in the first place. And the agent can then decide what sort of tool runs to use, allows for a much wider use case. And so I can go and ask things like a meeting prep. And if I want to get a bit more detailed here, I can ask for clarifying questions. And if it's already have that in context, it doesn't actually need to go back in to search the HubSpot data for because it already has this. But if it does, it can run those tools again and check for more information.
Love it, love it. Kenny's got a question, and you hinted it at the start, Wei Li, or you might want to answer it later. How is MRP different to an MCP?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. As a perfect segue. So now let's get into behind the scenes. So what's actually powering this, and what can we do with this? So quick lay of the land here. I just went from my task queue here into my build tab. The build tab, as you can tell, is pretty straightforward in that it is all English. It's your role, your guiding principles, the tools that you can use, and the documentation you have to refer to. Nothing here is code, and that's really important because that's one of the key difference with MCP. MCP relies still on someone creating it with traditional code and hosting it as a server, whereas MRPs here is just plain text and plain English, and all you have to do here is you connect a tool, put the API key here, and tag it. The way that HubSpot is connected here is through this tool where it is actually using a HubSpot account, but all the scary details of what used to be code is just kind of these variables that we allow the agent to decide. And we can see that from the screen. I think the screen shows a better view of this. So you can see how should we fill out the API call and what is it for? The agent decides how to do that. How do we fill out the endpoint to use? The agent decides to do that. Then that begs the next question. How does the agent actually decide to do these things? And that comes back inside of this page where these are the instructions that we provide to Harry in how to use his CRM and how to use the APIs. And those are two separate things. The CRM more relates to our process and what we want from it, and how we think about our CRM. And so that's kind of the guiding principles here. So for example, if you're unsure, you have to ask me. Don't assume that I'm just meeting with Sam Altman. If you can't find that information, make sure you clarify with me. Don't make up information that I'm meeting with Sam Altman if you don't have that. Feel free to look, but think twice before changing anything. I think this is good practice even for the humans in the room. If you're working on an account for the first time, for example, and you're not entirely sure what's happening and why we've added this node or why we've added this property inside of the economic buyer, and if it's not your deal, you should kind of ask the person before you actually change anything there, because that's again historical context and historical data. The other thing here that Harry does is it looks at the knowledge base. So part of the process here is to continually understand more and more about our CRM as we work with it. And in some cases, Harry has done the same task, thousands of times. And so instead of trying to do it from scratch over and over again, it's actually saving the process of how to do that work so that the next time it does it much quicker. And it saves us to this My CRM knowledge table. So that's part one of how to use our CRM and what we care about. And then the right side gives us a bit more of that detail around how to actually interact with the technical bits, so the API component. And this here is all that documentation that you can find online about HubSpot's endpoint. And I'll keep scrolling here because some of these things here you can see, I'll just zoom into, a few parts. This is looking at the CRM objects. In CRM objects, that means it's either the contact, the company, or the deal. And if you interact with any one of those things, you always need to pass in a property. You need to pass in its associations. And this is how you want to be doing that and structuring that information. This is essentially a prompt. It's just a little bit more technical than your usual prompt. But guess what? This is not actually something I typed out. I actually go to HubSpot, documentation, and I go to the API references, and I'm looking at things like CRM objects, which we just saw. And here is what I'm doing. I'm copying and pasting the entirety of all of this, putting that into something like ChatGPT, and asking it to structure a documentation for me. And once I have that information, and once I've decided which endpoints I'm using, I come back inside of Harry and paste that in here. That's a simplification of what's happening here. And we do that for essentially all the endpoints that we care about. And this ends up being a very long document because we want to do a lot of things with HubSpot. So while it still requires a little bit of technical understanding around how to use APIs and thinking about endpoints, what you find is that this is actually quite different from a typical API documentation. It is actually a little bit more instructed. It's instructed in a way that it also has best practices. So similar to this, where you can see that it's got all these different endpoints that we get to interact with, each one of that, you can see there's more technical details, for example, and even examples of how to use it and what information you need to pass to it for it to work. HubSpot also actually prepares a bunch of quick start guides. And these quick start guides kind of gives you an example use case of when you'd want to use this information and how you chain a bunch of API calls together to perform the work that you want. And you can see here, they have a ton of those ones all around. And what Harry is actually doing here is taking all that technical details, but at the same time, it's understanding a little bit more around what we want to do with it, so that we have a category of prompts that just tells us how are things, going to work in a practical sense. Like, here are the practical tips, here are the traps. Your accounting software might store a date as December 1st, but HubSpot date properties are using a different format. And so you always want to convert that format before you use it. And so while it is a long, scary document about all your endpoints, it's also pretty straightforward in that it is just using real world examples to contextualize how it should use its endpoints. Okay.
Can I pause here, Wei Li? There's some questions in chat. Where did you just copy the API? This is from Juliana. Tim, where did you add the API documentation? So you went to HubSpot, you got the information, but where did you paste that? What is this right-hand window? Can you just explain that? What you did, or reiterate that process? So you got the API documentation, and then you said you chucked it into ChatGPT or you rewrote it, but then where did you paste it? What did you do? Take us through that again.
So this here on the right-hand side is a variable. And
it's a variable, okay.
In here, you can actually create new variables. And this is a really big one. And I'll just go all the way down.
Okay, here. Okay, it's huge. Okay.
I can click long text and I can add a new category. So HubSpot best practices, for example. And you can get ChatGPT to create a summary of the best practices of using HubSpot. And once you have that, you can paste it here. And then maybe I want something that is, a table to say, here are my list of sales reps. And we can add, sales director.
So it is a form of knowledge, Tim, because Tim asked a question. Could you add these HubSpot pages to Harry's knowledge, or, how could you do this?
It is, yeah. It is essentially, it's just variables, at least in Relevance, it's actually prompts. These are just attached to your main prompt. And the way we split out variables is just for us humans to quickly get to it and categorize these things so that we don't get lost ourselves. But
and
how
then
the
there's a question: where did you then mention from Juliana? Where do you mention the variable in the prompt? Multiple places, but can you give us an example if we go back to the instructions?
Yeah, that's right. So
yeah,
if we go back in here, sorry, into the variables, we can see this variable is called HubSpot CRM Comprehensive Guide. And my main prompt here refers to that. So always refer to technical details found in the HubSpot CRM API guide and documentation. And I refer to this over and over again because I really wanted to pay attention to that. There's also another one that says my CRM knowledge, and that one is a knowledge table. And this one we can go through a little bit more in detail later on. But if I scroll down again, there's a section where I append the entire documentation into the prompt. You can see here HubSpot CRM API guide and documentation. That's a comprehensive guide. The comprehensive guide is essentially a variable here that just takes whatever we pasted in and we put that at the end of the prompt. Okay, so this is a quick overview of how we structured. So we went through the kind of high-level prompt around its role, how it should think about its task, and what it cares about, how it should prioritize its information. It's also got a bunch of tools which we don't really have the time to get into, but for anyone working with a CRM, you always want to do some reporting and you want to do basic math, and you can actually attach specialized tools to do those tasks. We saw an example where most people are typing dates in different formats, but we always need to convert that into a very standardized format for HubSpot to understand. So there's a tool for that. And in this one here, it's actually a really interesting tool. It's a memory tool, a tool that actually proactively adds CRM knowledge to a table. And because it's being constantly refreshed and learning about all our different processes and what we care about and our preferences when working with Harry, it's able to save that automatically into the knowledge table and then use that in the next run. And that's actually controlled here under the memory tab. I wish we had more time to get through more details here, but we don't. I highly recommend you to clone this from the marketplace and play around with this. But the takeaway here should be that anything that you kind of want to focus on using your builds, your MRPs that you want to be building in the future, they are controlled directly inside of the prompt here, rather than having to code up some crazy thing. It's more about giving Harry or your agent the right tools. It's really being specific about how you want to be documenting your process and what you would do if you were doing this work yourself. And then for the technical bits, I would say leverage something like ChatGPT to help you understand it and structure it into a documentation for your agents. Okay, I'll come back in here and just kind of highlight again what those differences are. MRPs and MCPs, right? So we talked about the tools. MCPs have a bundle of specific tools that is built by somebody else and a developer somewhere and hosted on a server. Whereas MRPs are open-ended tools. We don't specify the endpoints itself. We actually just give it a tool to run API calls, and through the documentation, it knows what to do. And so the language it uses is also different because MCP relies on those code steps to almost programmatically identify what API call I need to run at any given time. Whereas MRPs are just on English. It's whatever you put in your documentation and whatever you're telling it to focus on. That's what it will do. It's also, in a way, infinitely customizable because it's your documentation. You are the one building it, not somebody else or a developer. You can change anything about that. And then the final piece here, it's the ecosystem. For now, MCPs, you typically have to wait for someone to go and build it, and then you got to use it in a platform that supports MCPs as a protocol. Whereas MRPs work with any API today, and you can actually get started if there is an API documentation that exists online. So let's actually have a more practical look at where this, lives in our CRM and in our processes. Now that we've seen what Harry can do using that Sam Altman example, we can also see that it is actually, at the end of the day, just a component in many of our future agents. What I mean by that is that we treat Harry as a capability to be able to dive deep into our CRM, pull out the information that we need, and then give that back to somebody else in our agent workforce. And you'd see this pattern a lot where most of the times we have an agent that actually needs to do the work. In this case, he's our sequence coordinator. He's supposed to do the research around our prospects. He's tasked to figure out context about our CRM and the latest deals. And the final output it's supposed to do is to create a personalized email thread so that we can send a sequence to. And the way we do that is that we've got 3 agents working together, and Harry's part of that because we need information from CRM. The same thing here exists with our pre-call sales researcher. So before every call, we actually want to do a bit of research to just make sure we're fully prepped, just like how we did with Sam Altman. We want to also figure out if there's anyone else coming into our call that we don't know about. So if, for example, we can see here that one of the stakeholders are Ashley, and the champion is David Lin. But here in our CRM, we saw that we only have Ashley and Sam. So who exactly is David and why is he on the call? That's where we can connect to other things like an Apollo MRP, where it's able to take that detail from the calendar invite and look that person up online, whether it's Apollo, Google search, LinkedIn. It's able to prospect and uncover more information, even if it doesn't exist in our CRM today. And so the combination of being able to plug and play different MRPs, depending on the job it's supposed to do, is a huge unlock, because whatever that meeting prep summary looks like, it's going to be much more informed. And an example of how this is working so far for us is that we've got about 4,000. I just checked this morning. We've got about 4,000 meetings that we've done research for. And this was since probably 2 months ago that we launched the version 2 of Presley. And then we had a version 1 running for 3 months prior, which did even more thousands of calls. What else? What else can we use Harry for, and where else does it live? Here is something I call Baby Sawan. He's our sales watchtower. He's meant to know exactly what's happening with all our deals at any given time, and it's got its own prompt. The watchtower prompt is quite simple, and it's mainly sending things over to Slack and tagging the right people. But the way it's able to get that information is through Harry. And so the triggers you can see here are all HubSpot. And these ones are things like when the deal changes its status, if the forecast changes, it triggers from HubSpot. It goes into the watchtower. And the watchtower is then asking Harry for all that juicy information about, give me the backstory about why this deal's forecast has changed. What was it in the past and what's it now? So that's an example of how we use Harry as a component in the different workforces. The other example here is Harry in Slack. Now that we can connect agents to Slack and we can tag Relevance AI in pretty much any conversation or any channel, we are able to interact with this. And this has also been a huge unlock, because now anyone can interact with our CRM in real time. And most of our employees actually don't even have a login to HubSpot, but they still care about, say, a particular customer, or if they heard like something came up about a cool use case from that customer, they can actually query our CRM via Harry in Slack. And here's one example that I always like to start with, which is like, at Relevance AI, what can you help me with? And HubSpot, MRP Wizard, which is tell you based on its prompts, what can it do? It can summarize things, it can log notes, it can report on your pipelines, summarize recent activities, it can also troubleshoot your CRM, but it can't do certain things. It can't manage the marketing side of HubSpot, because I've not given it the documentation for the marketing endpoints. I only care about the CRM stuff. Okay, we have about 10 or so minutes left, and I would love to show this final example to everyone. We've been talking about HubSpot, CRMs, and Harry and MRPs for a while, but this is actually just a design concept. The same principles can be applied to any system that exists. And here's one that is absolutely massive and in a lot of ways is impractical, but it's a thought experiment. What if we connected a bunch of MRPs to one manager and it's able to do all these different things? So it's able to research, generate images, work with Notion, go into Webflow, go into Apollo. We saw that just now. It's got Harry here, HubSpot Assistant. It can do things like Google Sheets, Google Slides, Gmail, Salesforce. These are all MRPs, and the same concepts apply where it's got two parts to its prompt. The part where it teaches it how to work with the system, and then the technical bits of how to use its API endpoints. And I've got the example here open, which looks a little bit like this. Hey, what can you do? And the MRP manager replied with, I can research, I can write, I can present, I can go into your CRM, I can write emails, I can generate websites, I can, generate images, I can work on your projects, I can do things in Notion, and there's a fair bit. It keeps going. And so here's one example that I kind of fed through, which is, can you help me to pull the HubSpot company record for our own company and show me the last few notes? Once you've done that, check if it's accurate, update them if necessary, and then make those changes because I'll be meeting with Jackie. I also want to figure out if you can put all that information into the Google Sheets that you can create. And what else did I ask you to do? And if you could you please create a Notion?
Presentation too. You want a
Yeah,
slides and a Notion page? Jesus.
yeah. Create it inside of a Notion page here, and then finally send it all as an email update to this email address. And it's gone away and did that. And you can
Oh,
see
let's be
here.
honest. Before you did this, Luke's got a question about troubleshooting. If you set this up, this is not going to work straight away. What's a day in the life of Wei Li troubleshooting a system like this?
The day in the life is more. Yeah, I'll love to take questions now in the next 10 minutes, and I'll just scroll down so that people can.
And earlier, George had a question about architecture and how you set Harry up. And did you look at other ways that may have worked but then didn't work, and whatnot? So have a look in the things. But yeah, setting it up takes time. Troubleshooting takes time. Walk us through some of those learnings.
Yeah, setting up takes time. More so from documenting your process. I'll actually flick over to this side here. This is a part about how to use MRPs and how to build them. This is actually the biggest part. This is the most difficult thing for us humans, which is we need to document everything that we know about the tools that we use. We need to document everything about the things that we care about. We need to also document everything that we expect the agent to do. And the reason why I say document, because essentially that document becomes its guide, its prompts. And we are notoriously bad at like documenting everything because everything lives in our head at the moment. That is the core of all these things. Once you have that though, it makes life extremely easy because if you think about Harry again, this is essentially one giant document about how to use our CRM. And then this one here is a giant document about all the technical details, which HubSpot also has. It's just converted in a way that Harry understands it. And so all of this is essentially just document writing. It's sitting down on your computer, thinking through critically about what the things you care about, when scenarios show up, and what to do with those scenarios, as though you were teaching someone from scratch. This is what a day in a life actually looks like when building some of these. The good thing is that once you have some of these core documentations, you don't actually got to create it again. You can actually plug that into future agents. You can use that into many different areas as well. The second part to building MRPs like this, and I think you called it out, like is this like a bunch of troubleshooting. Not really, but only if you've done the pre-work, which is you understand exactly how your data lives or is structured. You trust that data in the first place, so that if an agent is going to go into your CRM and read from it, you trust that it is actually correct. Because if you don't trust it yourself as a human, then whatever the agent is going to read is also going to be wrong. And so doing the pre-work, which is CRM hygiene, this is a huge call out. CRM hygiene, that's actually where I would say 50% of the work is. And that has nothing to do with agents. It's just more around keeping your CRM clean, making sure your team knows how to use it, making sure the data is all flowing and is all connected correctly. And final one is giving it its tools. This one here is less troubleshooting, but more making sure that if it's being asked to do a certain task, it's got the tools to do those things. So for example, if you're asking it to do reporting and it does not have a tool that helps you with reports, then it's going to fail. It's just, at the end of the day, an LLM trying to make something up. It's just predicting the next word, right? And numbers and prediction is not the best way to run reports. And so you actually want to create tools that it's got so that it can create, really robust, trustworthy reporting. And this is actually the Do Some Math tool here that I've got connected to Harry. Again, this is these are all in the marketplace, so you can actually clone that and dissect it yourself and see how it's all structured.
Nice. Small one from Tim. Harry's using Claude 4.5. Does the LLM matter for the high-level MRP?
The LLM definitely matters. As you can see, the documentation and essentially the prompt is giant. And so the few things that you want to be considering here is the speed, the price, and the context window. There's a ton of great models to use. This one is probably the most expensive, but it's also the best. For other use cases that we have running, I actually default to GPT 4.1. This is actually what is on the marketplace version of it, and it's about 10 times cheaper on average. It's a non-thinking model, but it's really good at calling tools. It's really good at technical documentation, and it's got 1 million context window. And that means you can put a giant prompt like this, which is about 12,000 tokens, into a 1 million token context window. The other part about GPT 4.1 is that it's extremely fast. It's non-thinking, and it's hosted by OpenAI, and so your prompts, your results come back a lot quicker than even the best models like Sonnet 4.5. Any more quick fire questions?
Gabe has just asked a question. I know Snowflake can build similar things to the MRP. How does this differ?
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with what Snowflake is doing, but I actually expect a lot of platforms to start thinking about offering this version of agent building in some ways, whether it's using their own tooling. But the concept here is quite straightforward. It is using the LLM to decide how it should fill up variables in its tools. I think the entire industry in AI agents, we now understand that agents work really well with calling tools, based on the scenario. It's able to do that dynamically. Now we're going into one level deeper, which is like, can it do things dynamically within the tool? And what I mean by that is, can it fill these things out using its documentation in a tool, and can it run on an LM to do those things in a very consistent way? And I think that is not a concept unique to us. So I expect more people, creating AI agents, AI tooling, to start exploring this category of work, this category of tooling.
Conscious of time, Raphael's asking a few questions in chat, but before we maybe jump to that, you mentioned a few times that this is available in Marketplace. Is it the same, what you're showing us? Is it a lighter version? What can people on the call expect to see if they wanted to go to Marketplace? What do they look for? And what would they be cloning?
Yeah, it's the same. So this agent specifically is designed to be general purpose. So anyone working with with HubSpot, it should work with you automatically. The thing that it is actually contextualizing is empty. So as you clone it, you'd see that you have a My HubSpot CRM knowledge. This starts empty, and as you work with it more, and as you work through more scenarios and ask it more questions, it's going to fill this document up over time. And that is the stuff that is unique to you guys. So whatever's on the prompt here should work for any company and anyone wanting to work with HubSpot. And then the stuff that it is personalized and contextualized is running on that that tool that saves your processes and your preferences proactively.
That was Raphael's question. He just jumped on late, but you already time boxed. Maybe we would have another session completely on memory and learning and whatnot. That would be a lot to unpack. Any final comments for us, Wei Li? Thank you for your time. That hour just sped by. I don't know.
I know.
When we talk about this stuff, I don't know. I'm in a vacuum. I've been locked in the whole 58 minutes. What are we? We've got a deck. Who created this deck? Tell me more.
This is the original one with Sam Altman.
Oh, this was the first prompt that you put in. This is your meeting prep. Okay. Show us.
So this is what it's all about at the end of the day. What is a CRM for is to get you that information, but it's not going to do anything if you just like keep that in your own head and maybe you're a little bit more prepped for the call. But because agents can take action, and one of the key actions once you have all that information is to share it. And the best way to do that is to create slides for it. And so over here, you can tag the slide builder and turn anything that you found in your CRM into slides. And it's able to convert that huge chunk of text, which, let's be real, no one reads, into something that you can even share with your end customers. So all the best using HubSpot, Harry, MRPs, and agents. There's a lot of things you can do, but I'll close on this part, impact. For us as a company, I think this has been a game changer because we're now collaborators with our agents and our systems. We're not just users, we're collaborating with it. It's living, it's breathing, it's doing things on behalf of us. It's coming back with results, and we're doing things like creating slides with it. If it's not doing the job well, we give it feedback. It's a much more collaborative way of working with your systems. HubSpot is just our system of record, but it can be done with any. Personally, I think this scales my reach exponentially because now I don't have to answer the 58 Slack messages about, hey, can I find this thing in the CRM? Can we add this one thing? Harry can do that in a lot of cases, and they can actually get access to it straight away in Slack. And then for you guys, I think you'd find that this is going to be a new favorite colleague if you use HubSpot every day. This is going to be a pretty big unlock if you give it a shot. All right, we'll close there. I think I lost your audio, Chelsea.
Oh, thank you. Raphael's question, he wants to connect. If anyone wants to connect to continue to this discussion, I do suggest starting a thread on Circle within the Relevance community, and the broader team can help answer. Wei Li is one of our experts, residents, building residents in residence, but the team are there to support too. Or you can also connect with Wei Li on the LinkedIn. Thank you again, Wei Li, for giving us your time. This has been wonderful. There's always something new to learn and something to blow our mind. So thank you, team on the call. Thank you for joining us. Nice to see you, Luke. Nice to see you, Kenny, and to meet you and Raphael. Do connect with the team on Circle, on the Relevance community. Pretty sure we've got a session this time next week. See you all then. Bye for now.
Bye.
Ciao.